Hey, how's it going, YouTube? Welcome to another Storytime Quickies of Chinese myths and folktales. Today's Chinese myth, or folktale, is the Buddhist priest of Chang Qing. Really sorry if I butchered that. Chang Xing, Chang Xing, Shang Xing. I think I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully, I'm getting pronouncing that right. At Chongqing, there lived a Buddhist priest of exceptional virtue and purity of conduct, who, though over 80 years of age, was still hale and hearty. One day he fell down and could not move, and when the other priest rushed to help him up, they found he was already gone. The old priest was himself unconscious of death, and his soul flew away to the borders of the province of Honan. Now, it chanced that the Xian of all old family residing in Honan had gone out that very day with some 10 or a dozen followers to hunt the hare with falcons. But his horse having run away with him, he fell off and was killed. Just at that moment, the soul of the priest came by and entered into the body, which thereupon gradually recovered consciousness. The servants crowded round to ask him how he felt. When opening his eyes wide, he cried out, "How did I get here?" They assisted him to rise and led him into the house where all his ladies came to see him and inquire how he did. In great amazement, he said, "I am a Buddhist priest. How can I hither? How came I hither?" His servants thought he was wandering and tried to recall him by pulling his ears. As for himself, he could make nothing of it, and closing his eyes, refrained from saying anything further. For food, he would only eat rice, refusing all wine and meat, and avoided the society of his wives. After some time, he felt inclined for a stroll, at which all his family were delighted. But no sooner had he got outside and stopped for a little rest than he was besieged by servants begging him to take their accounts as usual. However, he pleaded illness and want of strength, and no more was said. He then took occasion to ask if they knew the district of Chongqing, and on being answered in the affirmative expression his intention of going thither for a trip, as he felt dull and had nothing peculiar to do, bidding them at the same time look after his affairs at home. They tried to dissuade him from this on the ground of his having but recently risen from a sick bed, but he paid no heed to the remonstrances. Remonstrances? And on the very next day set out. Arriving in the Shangqing district, he found everything unchanged, and without being put to the necessity of asking the road, made his way straight to the monastery. His former disciples received him with every token of respect as an honored guest, and in reply to his questions as to where the old priest was, they informed him that their worthy teacher had been dead for some time. On asking to be shown his grave, they led him to a spot where there was a solitary mound some 3 feet high, over which the grass was not yet green. Not one of them knew his motives for visiting the place, and by he ordered his horse, saying to the disciples, "Your master was a virtuous priest. Carefully preserve whatever relics of him you may have, and keep them from injury." They all promised to do this, and he then set off on his way home. When he arrived there, he fell into a listless state and took no interest in his family affairs. So much so that after a few months he ran away and went straight to his former home at the monastery, telling the disciples that he was their old master. This they refused to believe, and laughed among themselves at his pretensions. But he told them the whole story and recalled many incidents of his previous life among them, until at last they were convinced. He then occupied his old bed and went through the same daily routines as before, paying no attention to the repeated entreaties of his family, who came with carriages and horses to beg him to return. About a year subsequently, his wife sent one of the servants with splendid presents of gold and silk, all of which he refused with the exception of a single linen robe. And whenever any of his old friends passed this monastery, they always went to pay him their respects, finding him quiet, dignified, and pure. He was then barely 30, though he had been a priest for more than 80 years. Wow. What a strange story. I'm not entirely sure what this one's supposed to like have moral wise. Um it almost sounds like a tale about uh trying to explain this delusion, cuz like obviously people probably had a very difficult time accepting why people would give up their prized possessions, um their state of nobility. So I'm guessing that this folktale probably, or this myth kind of like was trying to explain it in some kind of spiritual way, that maybe this person wasn't them, but like rather a spirit that took over their existing bodies. And that's why they went to live in a monastery and give everything up basically to become a monk. Uh, Really weird. I wonder when I wish a lot of these stories came with dates, cuz I would love to know exactly when they were created, or at least first written down, you know? Uh you could probably look it up. It probably has like a guesstimation as to like when some of these tales were written down officially, but it's interesting to note that like there's probably a lot of, this is in China, so China had a lot more trade market, so they had a lot more exposure to different religions than say like Japan, who was a very isolated island. Uh, so it's interesting to see them kind of talk about these religions. It's technically kind of like a religion, right? Like the Buddhism, Taoism, and stuff like that of that nature, and how they try to explain it compared to like the Grimm's fairy tales and how they try to explain their uh, magical religious things that would occur too. But even in Grimm's fairy tales, they kind of shy away a little bit from the Christianity a bit. You have a lot more tales about like mystical creatures like the witches and um, what other tales? We had like a lot of animals that could like speak, you know. You had a lot of magical you had a lot of magical events that would occur, like say a prince would be turned into an animal of some sort, or you know, there was dragons at one point too. Very odd to think about. Not We're still very like we're still early into this book, but like I'm so surprised that we haven't run into a single myth or folktale about a dragon yet. How odd is that? I'm pretty sure at some point there's got to be at least some story about a dragon, right? Because dragons are just so built into the culture of Chinese myths and folktales, or at least fables from around there. Okay, Uh, if you're watching from YouTube, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps out with the algorithms. There should be some boxes that are going to be popping up down here too, but at the end of the video, for the Grimm's fairy tales and the tales of horror. There's a lot of really good stories in there. Go like all the videos, or like the ones that you like, because I might choose to animate some of them later on. At least the ones that are like the highest likes on the YouTube playlist. So go check those out. I will see you on the next reading. Bye.